Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My page is all about the wonderful world of hairdressing. So if you're interested in hairdressing, you're training to be one or you are one and you want some advice and some tips and some tricks, you will find it in here. I've got business ideas, ways to get clients, and also some tutorials on things that you can do yourself at home or on other people. Lots and lots of videos and information on hairdressing in here. So please subscribe to my channel if you like what you see. Drop me a like, give me a comment, let me know your thoughts, give me some feedback. I love interacting with you all. Also, if there's anything you want to know, please feel free to ask me. So subscribe, like and comment. So today here in the UK we are on our second lockdown. This one's a little bit different to last one as we are now in November. It's a little bit colder. The weather's a little bit greyer, although we're having a nice beautiful day today. And us hairdressers are being, told we can't work again until the 2nd of December. So I thought today I'd give you a little bit of education, take you right back to basics of colour theory and really, just work on where the basics come from, because now and again we do need to kind of stop, go back to the start and kind of re-engage in it all, relearn it all, refresh our minds with it all. So it's always there, it's always at the top, because colouring is a hugely important thing. So we're going to talk about things as soon as the client sits in our chair, the things we need to understand right at the start of the colouring process, as soon as we meet someone and we're giving the consultation. And this is going to help determine what they ultimately want to achieve with their hair colour and how we're going to get them there. So we need to understand the depths of their hair, the underlying tones or pigments in their hair, and what these are going to do and how by us putting colour on it's going to affect them. So what we need to do to get them there, because they come in and they say, this is how I want my hair. Now sometimes it's achievable, sometimes it's not, and it's a long process to get them there. But if we can understand the basics of colour theory, it makes our job a whole lot easier, because we know what steps we need to take to get that person to the colour they want to achieve ultimately, and in a nice way as well, rather than just going for it and it coming out and not doing what you wanted it to do. So yeah, so I'm going to take you right back today to the basics. So where is hair colour? So hair colour is created within the hair strand. So one hair strand is built up of 3 different parts. We've got the cuticle on the outside. So your cuticle is, I like to think of them as tiles on a roof. So we have tiles on a roof and they're kind of all fitted in like this. So when rain or anything comes towards them, it can't get in, it's all protected, the inside. And this is the same as the cuticles on your hair shaft. You see, so what that's doing is they're protective. This is why we condition our hair, because we need to keep them smooth and closed and stop any damage or outside influences getting in and damaging the internal part of our hair. The same way on a roof of a house. If one of your tiles is broken, we get a heavy rainstorm, that rain is going to leak in and damage inside your house. The hair shaft and the cuticle works the same way. It's just a nice easy way I like to imagine it happening. So that's the cuticle. So right in the middle of the hair shaft we have the medulla. Now this really hasn't got a hugely major part. It's kind of the structure, the backbone within the hair that keeps it all in place, all together. But then within the cuticle and the medulla we have an area called the cortex. Now in this cortex is where everything happens within our hair. It's where all the little, all the things that we hear on the adverts, they're all inside here. But also in here we have all of our little molecules type things and things that make our hair what it is. So the texture of our hair, whether it's straight, curly, thick, fine, it's all happening in there. And also our pigments are in there too. So what makes our hair the colour it is, it's all created in that cortex of our hair that's running right under the cuticle. And the different colours and the different styles of colours that we do, your semi-permanents, your permanents, they all kind of work with going either on the cuticle or absorbing right in and changing all of those things that are going on inside that cortex. which is when we perm and colour, we're kind of moving them around and changing them a little bit to create something different. So obviously we have melanin, which is another word for pigments, okay? So melanin comes in two different forms. We have pheomelanin. Now these are found mainly in our reds and our coppers and our blondes, and there's kind of not loads of these. They're kind of small and they're spaced out and they're floating around. Or someone with dark, thick, curly hair would have eumelanin. Now these are larger and there's more of them and they're all cramped together, which is what makes our hair, that hair, much more kind of darker and curlier, and whatever is going on in there, that's the kind of, it's the melanin that creates that. So when we talk about people with white or grey hair, that is pretty much because there's no pigment left in their hair whatsoever. There's no melanin present. So there's no pigment or anything being formed to create a colour. Therefore, it appears as white or grey, and it's, you know, all the melanin, all the pigment is completely gone. And we need to take this into consideration when colouring hair, because obviously if there's no pigment in there and it's on a white or a grey base and there is no pigment for a colour to grab onto or for us to alter, we need to take that into consideration too, because it's going to affect what we have to do to get them a certain colour. So when we sit that client down in the chair and we look for the first time and we need to give the consultation, we need to look at their hair depth and the natural colour that they are. There are 10 different natural colour levels, and these are universal, so all across the world these are the same, and they range right from 1, which is your darkest dark, black, right up to 10, which is the lightest blonde naturally that we can be. Now in colours you will see 11s and 12s, but they have been created with lighteners in them, so that makes them lighter, but ultimately this is the natural colour chart as it is, ranging from 1 to 10. So right in the middle we have light brown. Now everybody sees this differently, but as hairdressers this is kind of as it is. So this is why we get people coming in that have been and bought a box dye and put it on their hair, and they've thought their hair was medium brown. So they've bought a medium brown, they've put it on and they've come out and they've said, it's come out really, really dark. Well, this is because a mid-brown to us is a level 4. So that is quite dark. So the medium brown that they're seeing on their hair is probably actually maybe even a dark blonde or a light brown. Just because we know it this way, so our eyes are trained to know it this actual way. Also, when people are buying box dyes and putting them on their hair, they're not taking into consideration everything that we do. So this is basically the levels as they are, 1 to 10, and we need to know this because of this determines what is going on underneath. So then we move on to the natural depths. All have underlying pigments in them, or underlying tones as we like to call them. Now these are, as soon as you get in there and you start pulling apart those pigments and tones, natural ones in the hair, they start stripping away the colour and they reveal these underlying tones. This is why when we go on holiday and the sun lifts our hair, which it does from the ultraviolet rays, it exposes these underlying tones. The same way if we bleach someone's hair or lighten it, we're stripping away those layers and it's exposing the underlying tones. Now someone with a level 1 black hair has the underlying tones and pigments of red, so it means it has a lot of red in it. So as soon as we start putting a lightener on it or a bleach and lifting through them layers, the red is start to expose. The same way if we take someone that's a natural level 10 light blonde and we start lifting away those layers and breaking apart those pigments, the yellow starts to be exposed. So then we start having to tone. And now this is the way, so obviously all the way 1 to 10 has got all of these underlying tones and pigments in it. Now people will say, oh, you know, I've got a lot of red in my hair, I've got a lot of orange in my hair, and my hair doesn't like bleach. As soon as I lift it, it exposes all this warmth. And generally people do think it's just them, but believe me, it's everybody. Everybody is the same. It all kind of works this way. You know, if you've got someone that's a level 5, we know that they are going to have orange, yellow underlying tones, and that is what's going to be exposed as we start lightening their hair, or if we start adding colour to it. We have to determine these underlying tones and what they are naturally, because it's going to ultimately affect the colour that we are putting on their hair. So this is really important that we know the natural depths and the underlying tones, because as soon as we start lightening and changing these pigments in their hair, these are going to affect what colour we're putting on. Okay, now to correct this, we then go to the colour wheel. Okay, it all comes into effect. Now, we all learnt about this in primary school, and it is this basic. Okay, so we start off on our colour wheel with our primary tones. Now, these are 3 colours, and they're primary because they can't be created by using any other colour. So the 3 primary colours are yellow, red and blue, and these are as they stand. These are what every other colour comes from, this red, yellow and blue. We then move on to the second part of the colour wheel, where we get our secondary colours. Now, secondary colours are created by mixing our 3 primary colours together. So if we mix red and yellow, we get orange. If we mix red and blue, we get purple, or violet as we call it in the hairdressing world. And if we mix yellow and blue, we get green. Okay, now we don't obviously say green, we have ash. There's a few different types of ash when it comes to colours and the different brands and the tones in their hair. So we need to consider, we don't really say green, but we need to determine which of the numbers or the colouring system, whatever you use, is the green ash. Okay, so we need to take these into account. So if someone is a level of a 10 and they want to be as light white blonde as they possibly can, we know that we're going to highlight their hair, whether it be with a lightener or a bleach, and we know that they are going to be exposing yellow tones. Okay, so what we do is we then go back to the colour wheel and we can then tone that yellow that's exposed out. So what we do is we find the yellow on the colour wheel and we go opposite. So the opposite of yellow is purple or violet, you see. So we know if we put purple on somebody's hair, it's going to cancel out that yellow and neutralise it to make it a nice, even, clean tone without the yellow. This is why we have purple shampoos, or silver shampoos as we call them, but they all come out purple. This is because it removes that brassiness, it neutralises the tone, although with it being shampoo, it's not a permanent thing, it's just kind of every time you wash it and then it will wash out again the next time. And these are all things we consider. So if you've got someone with black hair that wants to go lighter, we know we're going to lift that light away. It's going to remove the underlying tone of red. So then we have to go opposite to red, which is green. So that is how we neutralise the green out. So if someone wanted to go a shade lighter and we didn't want to expose the red, we would then put an ash in that colour to neutralise that red off and keep it a nice even blonde. Okay, so it's that simple. It all comes back when we think about the process of how we're going to get there. We need to look at the depth of somebody's hair, what their underlying tones are going to be, and therefore what we need to do to correct those underlying tones that are going to be exposed and give them the look that they want. Now, if somebody has been colouring their hair themselves, they could have a lot of unnatural pigment in that's been in the colour that they've been doing it. Say they've been colouring it red themselves. So this works the same way with that as well. It's not just natural colours. We know that to get rid of any unwanted tones in hair, we use this colour wheel and we go on the opposite of what that colour is that we're trying to remove, and that is how we get rid of it. So we have a few different types of colouring that all do different things to achieve different outcomes in whatever our client wants that day within the colour range. Okay, so we have first of all a temporary colour. Now, a temporary colour is something that you just apply and it washes out instantly. It lays on top of the cuticle, it doesn't absorb into the hair, and it comes in the form of kind of coloured mousses. Your purple shampoo is a temporary colour. Any of the sprays or the crazy colours that we apply to our hair, if we've got, you know, Halloween or anything like that, we can use a temporary colour to add a bit of colour in our hair, and these generally will wash out. Now, things to take into consideration when you are doing a temporary colour on your hair is if you have got bleached or previously lightened hair, it's going to be a little bit more porous because it's already, the cuticle's already been opened and there's some work gone on, so it's going to appear lighter in your lighter areas. It may absorb it slightly, which could stain your hair slightly, but it's going to give an uneven effect. Moving on, we then have semi-permanent colours. Now, semi-permanent colours last about 6 to 8 washes. These come in the form of kind of lotions that we put on, or something that we just apply. We don't have to mix anything together to make a semi-permanent colour, because if it has any peroxide in it, it's going to be a really, really low level. But again, any lightened porous hair, it's going to absorb, it's going to appear brighter on your lighter areas. It's not going to give any coverage of grey or do their roots and get rid of that. And generally within about 6 to 8 washes, it should be out. It can stain again, and with your reds and things like that, if you've got light hair and you think, oh, I want to try a red colour and this says it's only semi-permanent, it's going to wash out, it may not. Just because if we've previously lightened hair, again, it could stain, it could grab, it could hold on to that moisture that the colour is giving it, and it could work that way. And when it fades, it will fade uneven and patchy. We then have permanent colour. Now, what permanent colour does is it opens the cuticle, it gets right inside of that cortex of the hair, and it all kind of oxidizes, changes the form and the pigments and all them internal colours of the hair permanently, and it should last forever. Now, this is where hairdressers should be doing this, because obviously we need to determine what colour is going on. When we're going back to the colour wheel, we need to consider the depths, all the colour that's on the hair already, to the way we're going to put these permanent colours on, and ultimately what they're going to do. You have to mix a peroxide in that, which makes it permanent, and there's different strains of peroxide. We can then move on with these permanent colours. We can lighten, we can highlight, we can bleach, you know, we can really get in there and change the form of somebody's hair colour and really, really change them pigments. So when we're lightening hair, we have our bleaches or our high lift colours. High lift colours are generally used with a high level peroxide to give maximum lift, because going through our levels of peroxide, obviously the lower the peroxide, the less it does to the hair, right up to 40 vol, 12%, where it will lift as many levels as it possibly can. With things like your bleach, obviously that's going to lift to the maximum level that it can be, but then we always will need to tone after bleaching, and I probably wouldn't advise bleaching with a 40 volt or 12%, because it's going to cause a lot of damage. We really need to take into consideration the levels through the different bands of the hair and what's happened to that hair into what peroxide we're using with the bleach. But that will generally lift, expose all the underlying tones and pigments in hair, and that will need toning. So we go back to the colour wheel, and whatever their tone is that they're going to expose from putting that bleach on and stripping away those layers of colour, we can then correct with the tone and move on from there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped you and refreshed your mind on the basic colour theory. Please leave me comments below. Please subscribe to my page and like my video, and give me your feedback. Take care. Bye.